are live at the 2022 Canadian Indoor Singles Championships. I'm Jake Shuknik, bringing you first game of the day here. Second for the men, first on TV. We have Jim Duholke from BC against Jerome Kirby from Manitoba. Jim is using black bowls. Looks like he's lying 2 right now, whereas Jerome has the red bowls. This is the first end of the first set as we're hopping in. And it looks like the standings haven't quite been updated on the website yet, but Jerome Kirby, I'm told, is still undefeated. And I'm being joined here now by Mr. John Spears, local legend. How are you this morning, John?
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on air. So you and the missus came down today to watch a excellent couple games of bowls.
Yes, and we just did watch Tim and Pat Bird play to a tiebreaker, and 2 measures at the end, very close. Great game.
Do you know who won that game? Was it Tim or was it?
It was Tim, yes.
Tim won it?
Yeah.
Okay. That was a must-win game for him, I believe, as his record prior to that was 6-2. He was in second place, so now he'd be 7-2. So still probably in second place. Jerome Kirby, the Manitoban, is, I believe, 9-0 going into this game. So he has almost punched his ticket through to the gold medal game. If he wins this game, he is guaranteed. If he loses this and the next, then he'll be tied possibly for second and might need to come down to tiebreakers and whatnot. But
Yeah, he's on a roll.
he is on a roll. He's been here several times before, and he's been getting better and better every time, and he's always hanging around. But based off of this field, I don't know if you would have told me at the start of the week that somebody was going to be 9-0. I would have said good luck. Unlikely.
Yeah, I guess that there must be some kind of a record, eh?
I think so. That's It's not very often that you see somebody go undefeated through the field.
No.
Not to speak too early. He's got this game and one more to go, but so based off of what we can see down here, it looks to me like Jerome might be holding 1 with that red bull off to the left. Hard to say from where we're sitting at the opposite end just exactly how close it is. Jim Duholke playing his last bull here, just trailing through, so not going to do much of anything there. Get some position. So you made the trek down from North Van, where they have a brand new 2-green artificial surface, sans and clubhouse.
Yeah, clubhouse is under construction. Hopefully by spring, but who knows. Some days there's 6 people there working on it, and other days there's nobody.
Never know what you're going to get, I guess.
No. And we're into our winter season now. We've been playing. I haven't stopped since September. Like most of the clubs around here, they close up late September.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still playing, and the weather out here was in our favor. So
Prior to this week, at least.
yes. And we have a competition called the Spook Fest coming up this weekend. Actually, tomorrow. So
The Spook Fest. What's that?
Spook Fest, yeah. Well, it starts in the afternoon. We play 3 6-end games, and we are Halloween, so there'll be people in costumes and whatnot. So that happens tomorrow.
I love the sounds of that, Spook Fest. Do you already have your costume picked out?
No, I didn't go in it this time.
Oh, okay. So you'll be one of the judges then, judging the
Yeah.
costumes later. So the Joker, Jerome Kirby, picked up 1 that first end to start off 1-0. 2 9-end sets and a 3-end tiebreak if necessary, as we are playing the 10th round for the men. So North Van having 2 artificial greens outdoors. Membership's got to be close to 200 people, I think. Someone told me it's getting up in that that range.
I think it's a little bit more than that, maybe 225.
225, getting even better. I love the sounds of that.
Yeah.
And how are the greens running? Would you say they're 13, 14 seconds, somewhere in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these are a little bit faster in here,
Mm-hmm.
but ours are quite fast at the moment.
Can't complain with that. And was it a company from BC that put in the greens, or was it
Yes,
someone? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember the name of the company, but because of COVID, the people from Scotland couldn't make it over here, so
Mm-hmm.
they had somebody from over here do it.
Oh, okay.
And so far, it's been fine.
Members are happy with it then?
Yeah, I mean, there's odd complaints about the seams and whatnot, but
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing on it. It doesn't bother me, the seams. You get the odd one that will maybe do a few little tricks along the seam if it's going really slow, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying it.
Well, with outdoor grass, you get lots of runs and ridges anyway, so you know a seam is nothing you can't get used to, I suppose. At least it's probably consistent. I don't imagine the seam's going to be going anywhere. Any early predictions for this game here between Jim and Jerome?
I haven't really watched Jim play this week, but I've watched other games. But very nice bowl there.
Beautiful. Before the game, Jim was telling me that all of his losses have been in tie breaks. So if I were a betting man, I would say if we're going to a tie break, then you know who to put your money on. I also asked them what type of bowls they're using. So Jerome is using Aerodynamics, which he purchased specifically for this event, actually. So in Manitoba, he plays, I believe, at the Norwood Club, which is outdoor grass. And during the winter, they do have like an indoor soccer facility they play on, but nowhere near as quick or beautiful as this artificial surface is here. So purchased Aerodynamics specifically for this event, basically, and they seem to be working well for him. And then Jim is using a couple of beautiful bowls there, Tiger Pros, which he uses both indoor and outdoor, which is interesting because a lot of people here, when they play here, they use narrower bowls just because the green's faster that they're not going to use outdoors. But Jim's using them both, and looks like he's using them well here. A couple of black beauties there. I'm kind of surprised Jerome isn't chasing this one down. I've watched a couple of ends that he's played here and there, and he is pretty quick to chase after his bowls, run them down, and almost blow on them as they're getting into the head. And that one he just didn't watch. Looks like it's still 2 to Jim. Not quite sure what he's looking at here based off of bowl number 2 and bowl number 3 being such wonderful draws. Don't really need to change much and not much harm if you're still just playing the draw around everything.
Yeah.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Coming this way. What is...
I would have thought that the backhand is what he would have stuck with, but it looks like he's lining up on his forehand, so I'm not quite sure why. After playing 2 really nice shots on your backhand, why the switch now? Didn't quite want to finish enough all the way, but that's really good weight.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably just the 2 blacks, and Jerome's already kicking things away, so... After 2 ends of play, it looks like we're 2-1 now. Jim Duholke taking the lead, assuming that that is 2. Kicking it in. Sounds like 2. So tell us a little bit about yourself for the viewers who don't know who you are, where you're from, any of that good stuff.
I am from North Vancouver. I have lived there since 1947.
Whew.
And I was away for a while, maybe about 10 years when I got out of high school, but eventually I came back. I worked in the medical technician, fixing heart monitors and ventilators and things like that. So I retired. I joined Lawn Bowls in 1999, and I retired in 2004, and then I took up coaching and player development and that kind of stuff. And I've been doing that since 1999. I put on the club coach and the competition coach courses here in the Lower Mainland. Since COVID, we haven't had as many as we were before, but it's picking up again. I got one club coach course in last year. The other ones, we had a planned one, but there wasn't enough people to fill it up, so it was canceled. And I've been to the interior a few times, to Kamloops and Vernon, to put on courses there too.
So for those of us not super familiar with BC, there's obviously the island, which is its own group of clubs, but then Lower Mainland is mostly sort of Vancouver area, correct?
Yeah.
And so when you say interior, you're meaning
Talking
like
about interior BC.
Interior BC?
Yeah. Kelowna, Vernon, and Penticton.
So that'd be a couple hours drive from Vancouver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kamloops is about a 3-hour drive or so.
Okay.
But this time of year, it's snow on the highways and whatnot. So generally, if I go up there, it's usually in June.
Right.
And they tried to have some earlier, some courses earlier last year, but the problem was that most of the clubs hadn't started up yet, so they weren't aware that it was on. So it got canceled as well.
Right.
So hopefully this year we can get up there.
Smart decision to wait till the roads are good before heading up that way. Don't want to deal with rain or sleet or anything else. And yeah, Sarah, sorry. I mentioned it earlier, but I guess maybe you were late to the show, or maybe my mic wasn't coming through. I am talking to John Spears from North Vancouver here. John's been one of our Master Coach Developers, which is a fancy title, meaning that he can actually train not just coaches, but train other people to train coaches. So there's a coach, then there's a learning facilitator, which is the person who runs the coach workshop. And then there's John, who trains the facilitator to run said coach workshop, which it's probably been years before you had to train somebody else to run a coach workshop. But if you were to guess, how many coaches do you think you've trained over your 20-odd year career of coaching?
Oh, my.
Got to be in the thousands, I would think.
Well, I wouldn't have thought it was that many, but I mean, what do we get? Maybe 20, 30 a year that take the course.
Right.
So.
Well, I guess it could maybe only be still in the hundreds, but you've been doing it since 1999, you said, so that's...
I took the first coaching course, facilitators course in 2004.
Okay.
And then I did my first course on my own in 2006, and I've been doing them ever since then.
06, so that's quick math here for anyone else. That's what, 16 years, give or take?
Yeah.
16 years at 20 or 30 coaches a year, so yeah, okay. Not quite thousands, but definitely hundreds.
Mind you, that's just what I've done. There's other facilitators in BC as well, and they have trained probably just as many as I have.
I'm familiar with Davey Matthey the most for being a coach facilitator, but there's also other ones like used to be Bev Johnson and Ron Leslie, and trying to think who else is here that I've heard the name of but haven't really met in person.
I'm not sure if Ron Leslie's still
active or not.
Still active or not? No.
He's on the island.
He's on the island, and Bev Johnson was on the island.
On the island, okay.
Yeah. And then we have two new ones this year, or last year was Mary Wright, and then Lynn Chorthwacky on the island.
Lynn Chorthwacky.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to.
And of course, Davy's over on the island. I was expecting I would see him here, but He's probably off skiing somewhere.
Check out the replay on this shot. I hit the replay button. We can look at what Jim just did. Crashing on his front one, then the second one, and onto the jack. Yikes. Yeah, Davey was here for the first couple days.
Oh, okay.
Him and Annie were umpiring one of the Annie umpired 1 day, Davey umpired 2 days. And so now they're back on the island. Looking forward to skiing season, I'm sure, as that's what they're keen to do in the winter. Head up to the mountain.
Lots of Facebook posts from him
Mm-hmm.
in the ski season.
So you can't quite see the bulls as Jim's standing right in front of the camera, but it looks like he's probably holding a couple of shots right now at the moment, as he has 2 black bulls that look to be closer than any of Jerome's after that fortuitous result on a drive. 1 bull to come here for Jerome, as he is playing on a forehand draw, looking to draw around everything. And there, now that Jerome's moved, you can see, or sorry, now that Jim has moved, you can actually see where his bulls are on screen. I don't know if Jerome sent it enough. That looks like that's dying quickly, so yeah, it didn't quite send it. So that'll be 2 to Mr. Duholke after 3 ends of play here in the first set. Quick to pick up, quick to get going.
Well, another thing that I really enjoyed when you guys stream the competitions, because we always can't get to them, and and you've done a really good job, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's tricky trying to set this up here and get good camera angles and everything else. The PIBC is nice just because it's consistent every year. I know what this facility looks like coming here, but any of the other events, I'm going in blind. I don't know what the clubhouse looks like or what the surrounds or anything else. So, big thanks to Choil and SportsCanada.tv for renting us all the tech every year. Canadian bowler. I was able to see that message before you retracted it, but good to see Jerome at a national championship here again. Yeah, so Jerome has played at this event, I don't know how many years in a row now, but he sometimes plays in the pairs or the fours or other events as well. And Jim, I only remember ever seeing at the outdoor singles once, maybe twice, but I don't think I've seen him at pairs or fours or any other discipline. Great wait for his opening bowl. So 4-1 head start here for Mr. Duholke, trying to give Jerome Kirby his first loss of the event. I'm not superstitious. I am maybe a little stitious, but I would probably want to get my first loss game 9, game 10, something like that, because you don't want your first loss to be in the gold medal game, right? So if you're going to lose, I feel like I'd want to get that out of the way with in the round robin where it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's hard winning every game and then losing the last one.
Beat everybody here, but then give someone a second chance and forget about it. Tracking nicely.
Wow.
Couple of good bowls here.
Yeah.
So we've talked earlier about how this facility is 18 years old, and it is still shocking just how good the greens are here, the artificial carpet here. It is hard to tell that it's 18 years old if you look down the middle. I don't see much for damage or wear or tear at all.
They've been pretty strict about the footwear and using things like wax and stuff on the bowls. So maybe that's helped.
It's interesting to me as well to see how many short bowls, as here's a well short and narrow one coming up, there have been at this event, because with the speed being as fast as it is, I would have assumed that everybody's bowls would be, you know, behind the jack and there'd be way more back bowls than short bowls. But from the games that I've watched, it almost seems like the opposite is true, and that everyone's trying to be so perfect with their draw weight that they're coming up, you know, a foot or two short. can see the marker is favoring Jerome for 1. That's interesting. From my point of view, I definitely would not have guessed that Jerome is being favored for 1. And here's the expected chase down your third bowl.
Close. Oh.
That could be difficult now for Jim, though, because his last bowl might be in his eye on the forehand, and now Jerome's last one on the backhand. This is, He's going to come down and take a look. Probably a good idea. Probably a good idea. So someone told me this year that North Van has some 20 to 30 odd coaches that are actively coaching all the new members that you keep pulling in every year. Is that true, or is that just a rumor?
Yeah, no, we have in that neighborhood.
That is crazy for me to hear, because being from Ontario and with Ontario's 120 odd clubs, I don't know if there's a single club that has more than half a dozen coaches. So for you to have 20 or 30 is wonderful, beautiful, and makes me happy to hear.
Yeah, we've always been had a lot of coaches, and we at the beginning of the year we need them because we usually get a lot of people. At least trying it out. You know, we might have 30 or 40 people trying it out at the beginning of the year.
So that means you could potentially go with like a 2-to-1 ratio then, if you have that many coaches. On a good day, maybe you might be able to have 2 players per coach or 3 players per coach, keeping the ratio down, so it's not like one coach is dealing with 20 new people at once.
No, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we try to have like do things on the weekend as well as during the week, so that the people at work have a chance to come out and do things as well. We used to coach. We used to have sessions on starting at 10 o'clock and then 1 o'clock and then 1 at 7 p.m.
Okay.
For 3 or 4 days of the week.
Yeah.
And we used to do that for roughly 5 weeks at the beginning of the season. So
busy.
Yeah.
Busy. Jerome's last bowl, he knocked himself over, but I think he might have pushed himself too far. So if it was a close measure before, I don't know if it's any closer now. I think it might be 1 to Jim. Yeah, 1 black.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Jerome has conceded. So after 4 ends, we're almost halfway done this first set already, and that's the one thing I kind of like about sets, is that they go by so quickly. Even if somebody's getting blown out, 9 ends later, you get to start again.
One of our previous coaches, Peter Moffat, he decided that one year we were going to do set play when we did our singles competitions. And that first time we did that, it was very confusing to everybody.
If you're not used to it, it is a whole different game, that's for sure. If you get their email, I can email it to them, but I will still need you to sign it. So if they have a printer here, I might just print it off here later today, if that's okay. So for head umpire, it's still $30 per game, but then we also cover mileage. We should be covering your meal plan while you're here, which there isn't really meal plans, $10 or whatever it is. Still the same as the normal. No problem.
Good answer from Mr. Kirby.
Yeah, no kidding. I am a big fan of, when I get to come to these events and stream them, to have a camera down at the other end to see how different it looks, because we're sitting down here behind the players, so we see basically what the players see from the mat at this end. And it's just good to be able to sort of check your eyes, because from the mat I would think that it's, you know, a few inches away from the jack, but then when you look at the camera angle down, seeing the other end, you can actually see how good your eyes are.
They always look closer than they are.
Makes us feel good until we get close to the other end and then see just how bad we are, right? So for those of you who haven't been over to our website, I would encourage you to go there and bullscanada.com under Events and Results, National Events, 2022 Indoor Singles Championships. And halfway down the page, you can find the scoring page, which will tell you the standings, which Jerome is 9-0, but Mr. Jim Duholke is 6-3. So he's sitting in 4th place right now. And so he's looking to try to punch his way back up into the top. So Tim and Carey are both 7-2. So Jim has a fighting chance of still maybe making the gold medal game if things shake out perfectly and he gives Jerome his first loss here, but needs a lot of ifs and buts for that to happen.
Must be hard to stay focused for that long.
Yeah, it's funny. I went for dinner last night with Doug Prop, one of the Saskatchewan players who's down on Rink 1 right now, and he was talking about how it is so difficult to stay focused for the entire day, game after game, day after day for the whole week. So after games and even before games, he likes to just go outside for a walk just to sort of let his brain wander and loosen up, because it's a lot of focusing if you're not used to it. As long as he's around those 2 black bulls, this should get Jerome Kirby right back into this game here now, as he's a little quick actually sailing through. I don't know if that's going to be in the count or not. Definitely won. Big thanks to Jenny Sue and all the other volunteers here for marking throughout the week. They've been doing a fantastic job. There's been lots of markers here rotating in and out, and Jenny's been one of them, so thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
I did not expect that to be a perfect end for Jerome. Those looked far enough away. I didn't think he'd count them all, but he did. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're all tied up at 5 after 5. Don't see that too often. Perfect end. And surprisingly, we at Bulls Canada do actually sell perfect end pins if you score a perfect end in singles. Jerome coming alive here and showing why he's undefeated so far this week. Being down 5-1, you blink, we're all tied up at 5. Good afternoon, Agnes, tuning in from the Heritage Greens Club, I believe, in Kitchener, Ontario. Nice to have you on the stream with us this morning. This morning for us in BC, this afternoon for anybody not in BC. So John, you've got me beat by 2 years of experience. You started in '99. I started in, I think, '01. So how difficult was it transitioning to playing on the indoor the first time you ever played on the indoor after playing on what was probably outdoor greens your first few clubs, I would imagine?
Well, when I started playing in here, it was a league for outdoor clubs to come in and try it. So they weren't, anybody that played here on a regular basis wasn't allowed to play in that league. So to try and even things out. But one of the first games in here, I got beat 32-3. So it was a difficult transition. Now I'm more competitive. I don't win every game, but at least I win a few now.
Haven't quite flipped the tables to be beating up on people 32-3?
No.
it is interesting to come to this event and view some people who are playing in it have never played on indoor or greens this quick before, and it takes several games, several days to get used to it because it is quite the transition. If the timer can be believed, they were timing these at 16.5 seconds at the start of the week, which is vastly different from any outdoor green in Canada, with the exception of maybe Calgary Lawn on a good day.
You're trying to talk it in there.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a lot this week. Jerome will be right up there and basically blowing it in, trying to get it to roll that extra couple inches. Seems to be working, though. Could be another in the count, just about.
Well, to get really good at the game in here, you have to play more than once a week like we do. We just come in and play once a week. But you need to play more than that to get really good at this.
I know some players have been out here for a week before the event playing every single day, trying to get the reps in.
That's what you need to do.
Based off of the head setup right now, I think that the shot to play for Jerome would be to come back around and try and roll Jim's black bull over once, because the marker said before it was pretty close for shot, but if you can roll that bull over once, Jerome could score another 4. And that's exactly what he's playing for here based off of that hand. Chasing it down. I don't think that's going to hold in time.
Oh, it's going to get in there.
Going for a trail, maybe. That's a different approach. That's a different approach. Okay. Good question, Daryl Fitzgerald, asking me when was the last time I rolled a bull on this surface. 2016 at the NAC. I think I rolled 1 bull then. And I've been out to stream this 2017, 18, and 19, but I don't know if I actually rolled any bulls any of those times when I was out here, so it might be 2016, and it was just a couple up and back. I am definitely nowhere near good enough to be competing in this, so I don't think you'll ever see my name at this event for anything other than broadcasting.
Oh, here we go.
Trying to crack at it. Interesting approach.
Ooh.
Didn't help his cause any there, so. The tide has turned in this set after getting up 5-1. Next 5-5. Now it's looking like it could be 6-5, 7-5, maybe 8-5. Change of fortunes. Calling for an umpire, and Dudley Knox is quickly right here. So big thanks to Dudley and the rest of the umpire crew for officiating all this week. Greatly appreciated. Based off of what they kicked out, so it's just the 1, and they're measuring for 2. Owen Kirby, I was curious if you'd be tuning in here this morning. So Owen is the reigning under-25 men's champion, and his uncle is Jerome Kirby, so he's tuning in to watch his uncle. Just said, "Let's go, Uncle Jerome," which is the most you'll ever hear Owen say. He's a very quiet lad. Owen, you're all prepared to be heading overseas. The World Youth Championships coming up here in December. He'll be going with Amy Spence from PEI off to represent Canada in December. So it was just the 1 there for Jerome to make it 6-5. Yeah, this year. Sorry, go ahead there.
Oh, I was going to say, mentioning things like from overseas. Ever since, like when I started, there was never any streaming or anything at all. You know, you never, the odd time you might see something. The first time I saw anything, it was actually on a CD somebody had. They had pictures of one of the Commonwealth Games or something.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, now you can go on YouTube and watch bowls all day.
Games on games on games.
Yeah.
One of the nice features they tend to have at the World Youth Championship is they tend to have live scoring so that there's someone behind each rink and will enter in the score for each end. So that way you can actually follow end by end for what the score is. So even though they're not live streaming, you can't watch it, you can at least follow along on the scorecard, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, somebody in the chat said that the other day. They weren't watching, they were listening.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, another. Ooh.
On the rink beside us here on rink 6, it's Kerry Lucier from Ontario against Carter Watson from Saskatchewan, and Kerry Lucier just threw a drive and chipped the jack and just about took out Carter at the legs. You might have been able to see that on the left of your screen, very top left, faintly being able to see that. Shane, I will take your word for that. He says it seems like Jerome has done this in multiple games. He gets behind and then catches up quickly and then dominates. I could almost make the same comment for the few games I've seen of Kerry Lucier. He seems to lose the first set and then dominates the second set and wins the tiebreak is what I've noticed. Coming in here nicely. That's a pretty good opening bowl after Jerome left the door wide open. This looks like a better adjustment from Jerome, taking a couple steps forward, trying to edge it forward. Still a little bit narrow, but better weighted at least. Looking at the couple other games beside us here, Heren Bartu is up 7-0 over Pat Bird after 4, and Kerry Lucier is up 4-1 over Carter Watson after 4. I don't think Jim is a big fan of how Jerome clawed his way back into this game here, as he's now just rolled another beautiful bowl in there, trying to say enough's enough. I don't want to give you any more. Here's the familiar chase down the third bowl that I've seen happen a lot here from a lot of players. Seems to be a consistent trend. A little too far.
From my experience, some of the coaches in the clubs here coach their players to do that.
Really?
Go up after the third bowl.
Huh.
Even if it's not necessary. Because we have novice singles tournaments every year, and some of the clubs, that's what they're taught. Go up after the third bowl.
That is interesting. I am very much not a fan of that. That's just my personal opinion, and so I'm not going to say that I'm right or wrong, but on a personal note, I'm not a fan of always following your third bowl down. Because if you're in the groove, if you're really feeling it, and if the head's wide open, you're just wasting time, maybe taking yourself out of the flow of it.
Well, I can see going up there sometimes, but when you know what the situation is, there's no point in going up, unless it's to waste time.
I agree wholeheartedly. Daryl, you're bringing up a good point here. That first bowl effectiveness advantage is massive in singles, especially indoor, where most players don't play on the surface. I'm a believer that the first bowl is the most important bowl in singles because it dictates how the rest of the end is going to go.
That's for sure.
So if you can lock it on with your first, then you put them under pressure right away. It sets up how the rest of the end is going to play itself out. I am constantly amazed at how everybody here seems to have found the line, and it's only the weight that they struggle with, because almost every game that we're watching, all the bowls are just lined up almost perfectly back on that center line, so everyone's able to figure it out. And looking over on rink 4 beside us between Pat Bird and Heren Bartu, there's another just perfect line of bowls. Everyone's back on the center line, and it's just the weight that they're struggling with. Makes me happy to see. Final bowl of the end here, as Jim is looking to lock another couple in. If he can just come back and rest Jerome's back bowl, he might even be able to get 3 out of it, but I think he's playing scared of it. Not sure that's going to make it. Yeah, nope. I do agree with you, Shane. It's better to head down there and check the head than to ask the marker 20 questions, but he does agree that you should only head down when the head isn't clear. Yeah, it's interesting how over the years as you play singles, you'll quickly learn that at some point you're probably going to ask the marker a question and they'll give you the wrong answer and it'll mess you up for that entire end. So it's usually better to go and check it out yourself if you need to, but the markers here seem to be very knowledgeable and know what they're doing, so I think I would trust most of these markers here.
George does a very good job of training us.
Mm-hmm. So we're all tied up 6-6 after 7, so we just have up and back to go. So whoever wins this end is going to have an advantage going home. Not sure who I would put my money on at this point. Too early to tell. Are you familiar with Jim much, being from BC, or have you not seen him play too much?
He's a member of Westvan.
Westvan, okay.
And that's the other club that's on the North Shore with us.
Mm-hmm.
And we, once or twice a year, we have competitions against their club. We have a cup called the Leyland Cup, and we play for that every year, and we've played for that. The 2 clubs have played for that ever since the 1930s.
Holy smokes.
So
1930s.
next year's is our 100th year.
Okay.
And I don't know, Westman's just behind us a bit.
Yeah.
But the ladies played a similar game.
Mm-hmm.
They play for what they have the Rose Bowl, and so we have this competition. And it's so I played against Jim in that competition, and also Tim.
Right. Tim's also from Westvan too,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
Something that just sort of jiggled in my brain there. You said that the women play for the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
In college football, there are every kind of bowl under the sun, and it's interesting to me that in lawn bowls we don't really have many tournaments that are like the Rose Bowl or the other. Like I would have assumed that almost every club would have had a tournament called something bowl just because we're bowling here, but that's maybe the first time I've heard in Canada of the Rose Bowl or any sort of bowl-related tournament.
Well, the trophy is a bowl.
Oh, okay.
On a block of wood,
Mm-hmm.
and they usually put roses in it on the day for
fitting. That makes a lot of sense then.
And we have a few of the Westvan players have come over to our winter league because we're still playing
Right.
in the winter. And ooh, here we go.
I want to watch that again. Let's
Yeah.
take another look. Here we go. Instant replay. The way he got the nudge through as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Great shot, Jerome. Yeah, come and take a look. That is a pretty tight head. That is a pretty tight head. The angles could be different for you. Interesting that Jim and Jerome just had a word there. So normally when one player comes down to visit the head, the other comes with. But technically, since Jerome's only thrown 2 bowls, he needs to ask the marker if he can come down as well. So he's not allowed to just come down with Jim unless he asks the marker first. Little known rule that could get stickly about. So the Rose Bowl is actually a bowl on a slab of wood. That makes me think of all of the different random things that we have as prizes or trophies in lawn bowls. I remember playing in Hong Kong. If you're in the top half at Tiger Bowls, you play for the cup, and if you're in the bottom half, you play for the plate. which I thought, why are we playing for a plate? That feels like a really weird thing to be playing for, but
Well, this is a silver bowl.
a silver bowl?
yeah.
Okay. I guess you could make anything a prize if you make it prestigious enough. Curious to all the viewers out there listening, what sort of unique thing do you play for at your club? Is there anything besides a cup or a bowl that you're playing for? I've seen photos that in the States, we all know that Walt Disney used to be a bowler, and so there's the Disney tournament that they play in down there, and it's actually 4 bowls on a trophy, so it's like a 50-pound trophy just because it has all 4 bowls on it.
Well, we also play once a year, usually at the closing of the summer season. The last thing is the Battle of the Sexes.
Mm-hmm.
So we play the men against the women, and that trophy is 2 little dolls and a couple of bowls on it. So it's made up by one of our previous members.
That's a unique idea. I'd love to see a photo of that just to see what that looks like. If I were Jerome right now, I would probably be playing on my forehand and trying to tap my front bowl. Because if you can get the front bowl in, you can push Jim's out, and you can be scoring 2, maybe 3 if your shooter comes with it. And if you happen to be on the wide side and miss your front one, you still might get a good result anyway. Right you are, Shane, and I think on a personal note, I'm not a fan of that rule. So apparently Jim's a stickler on that one. You have to ask to come down, and you can only ask once the mat's yours. I feel like that's kind of a missed opportunity to save some time. If someone's coming down, it makes sense for the other one to come down with them. You're not wasting any more time. But if you have to wait until the mat is yours before you can even ask, there goes an extra 2 minutes, because now we have to have another person walk down to the head.
Pretty close.
It is. You know, as weird as it sounds, if I were Jim right now, I would almost play the same shot that I was just suggesting that Jerome should play. Except instead of trying to get Jerome's top one, I'd be trying to get Jerome's one on the left. The way it draws back in, you can kind of split those almost if you push Jerome's far left one out. Might be able to score 2, maybe even 3 if you get a little jack movement. He does, of course, have the option to stick to the other hand as well and just roll his over 1, push it in. I'm curious if he's thinking about position and getting a back bowl either, because Jerome has a bowl by his right foot, you can see on the screen there as he just walks away. So Jerome's got best back.
A little short.
Coming up short. Will it get over enough to be in Jerome's eye? I don't think so. Takes away the backhand drive, but I don't think Jerome was even considering that. Based on the weight of his last one, I think he is trying to do that to grab his front one, push it through onto Jim's, onto the jack. Not an easy shot to make here on this fast surface. And on your right-hand side, there's a drive coming from Carter Watson. Bang, bang, boom. Well, Jerome's closer.
Yeah.
What's he got? Push and follow. Good for 1. So that'll make it 7-6 going into the final end of the first set, which is too close to say that you're really comfortable going home, but it is nice to have that 1-point lead. Big thanks to the Government of Canada through Sport Canada for sponsoring or supporting, I guess, all of our national championships, as well as all of our other national partners like Event Connect, our accommodations supplier, and others our award supplier, and Kukri, our clothing supplier. This looks like
A
it's
little shorter.
a very short end,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's going to be kind of tough to see on your cameras then, as it's way up at the top.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, way up there.
Yeah, way up. We will do our best to describe the head to you because it's probably not going to come through very apparent to you. Not a bad opening bull from Jerome. A couple feet short. If you do happen to live in the area, come on down to 4588 Clancy Loranger Way, the Pacific Indoor Bowls Club here. There is a lot of seating available here for anybody who wants to get a front row seat to watch some of the games. And today is the second last day, as tomorrow we have one round for the men, one round for the women before we go straight to finals. And as like most of our other events, it is just straight into the finals after the round robin. So 1 plays 2 for gold and 3 plays 4 for bronze. So there is no 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3 type of stuff. It's just after the round robin, we go straight into finals. Which I'm not sure how I feel about, to be honest. I've heard a lot of different conversations about we should do what curling does, where the top 3 advance and whoever's number 1 gets a bye, 2 plays 3, the winner of that plays 1 for gold. That way if you're third, you still have a shot to win gold. I've heard some people say that after the round robin, we shouldn't even have a gold, just whoever's first after a round robin automatically gets it. Lots of different ways we could do it, and I'm not sure which one I like best.
Time is probably, you know, you have enough time to do some of those other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because, yeah, that would add on a couple extra games instead of
Yeah.
just one. That's true.
You might need an extra day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the tricky thing with all of our events here, too, is that as flights and accommodations get more and more expensive, it's tricky to ask people to add on days and days and days to make events go longer and longer. But on the other hand, if you're playing at a national championship and you've invested all that time and money and you finish third, I can appreciate you'd maybe want a shot at going for gold. Shane, make sure you stop by the streaming booth to introduce yourself to us when you come down here. And if you are streaming, I'm going to ask that maybe you mute yourself so there's not crazy echo. As Shane O'Flaherty just said, he's heading down after this set, and he'll still watch the stream while he's here anyway. So Jerome's bowl there just opened it up, and that looks like a juicy target, and Jim is lining up. And here we go. Crack, bang, boom. Great hit.
Wow.
We can watch that again here. Bang, bang, boom. So it looks like Jim's shooter went out of bounds out the side, so it's dead. So the closest bowl is Jim's front bowl way up there that you can see at the top of your screen. So you've got about 30 feet to draw. Sometimes these shots are actually the hardest shot because you know you have so much space and you don't want to biff it. Jerome wasn't phased though, draws within 2 feet.
Nice ball.
Putting the pressure on. After Jim just threw a drive, how good is his drive and draw? That is also a challenging adjustment. So here's a question now for Jim. With his final bowl to come, he can either try to outdraw it and score 1 to then just have a tied set, or if he tries to play some weight and punch Jerome's bowl into the ditch, he'll score 2 and win the set. So are you more comfortable going for the tie, or are you feeling ambitious and going for the win?
We'll soon find out.
There is some clutter in front, which makes that drive a little more difficult. You have to be a little more precise. I think after playing a drive, I'd be more inclined to drive again, because you only have 2 feet to draw. You don't have a million miles of room. As he's lining up down on rink 1, Pierre Vanderhoot's up 8-4 after 7 over Doug Prop. Alan Wass is up 7-5 over Eric Galipeau after 8. Kerry Lucier up 5-2 over Carter Watson after 6. And that looks to be on the high side, so collision coming in. That'll be 1 to Jerome, and Jerome will take the first set. And of course, to clarify for those of you who haven't seen me do this before, the -1 next to Jerome just means he's won the first set, not that he has a -1 handicap. There we go. 0-0, playing the first end of the second set. Here we go again. Local knowledge, Shane O'Flaherty's telling us if he sees the path, Jim will always drive. Good to know. Keep an eye on that going forward. Looks like Tim Mason took the first set over John McDonald as they're starting their second set. Heren Bartou's up 7-3 after 7 ends against Pat Bird. I think that's every score here, as there's only 5 other games to talk about. Do you change bowls when you play in here versus what you use outdoors?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, I use Henselite Classic Deluxe outside,
Mm-hmm.
and I use Tiger 2s in here.
Oh, okay. Are they colored or traditional black or brown?
No, they're just the Henselite Classic Deluxe are brown, and
Brown.
the other ones are black.
Black and brown. It's funny with how many colored bowls there are now. Black and brown actually stand out more than the colored bowls do, I think.
Yeah, my wife has the same set. Hers is a Classic Deluxe brown, but hers are size 2. Mine are size 4.
Ah, okay.
But when we played on the same team, sometimes or against each other, sometimes the thirds have a hard time with our bowls.
I know at my initial home club back in Chesley, Ontario, when I was first growing up, they used a lot of old bowls in the clubhouse that probably got back in the 80s, and so they were faded and couldn't quite make out what the logo was anymore. They were just black bowls with gold rings, and there were a couple sets that were so similar. One had 3 rings, one had 2 rings around, that when you played against each other, it was impossible to tell whose bowls were who, because they were same color, same logo, just 1 ring different. I am a big fan of what Kerry Lucier did over the winter, and it was all over Facebook that I could see, is that he did a tutorial on how to breathe some new life into old bowls by painting them. So highly recommend you go and check that out. It's probably on YouTube, but it's basically how to touch up some old bowls so it looks like they're new again by repainting the logo, repainting the rings, make them pop.
Nice bowl from Jerome.
Not surprising here, playing a pretty short end again as Jerome has the mat up. several paces, and it's a medium length jack-ish. It can be hard to restart, reset for the second set after trying so hard and then just coming up just short in the first set to put it behind you and start anew.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to be able to forget about that first set and concentrate on this one.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard to do that because there's not many other games where you get the chance to even practice that. When you're playing a 14-end game of pairs, it's not like halfway through you just say, hey, time to reset. So Jerome's asking for the count. Marker says 1. So Jerome's going to come down and take a look because I think he was thinking it was more than 1 at the moment. If I were Jerome right now, I think a slight trail of the jack might be in his favor if he can move it a couple inches. Backhand draw. Bring in that back bowl to get 3 out of it. Also tuck it behind his other bowl so that way Jim can't drive at it. Not surprised. Here we go, backhand. That looks tight unless he's got weight to hold it. Nope. Big thanks to Serge and Eric and Sam and the whole crew here at the PIBC for putting on such a good event here once more. They made an announcement during the opening ceremonies. Welcome to the something like 15th consecutive indoor singles at the PIBC, something like that. So it's been here for many, many years in a row.
He's got the right road.
Yeah, he's in the ballpark. Just missing on his way through, though. Pretty good effort for your final bowl when you know you need to make it. Didn't come up short either, which is good. They always say, gotta be up when you're down. One to Mr. Kirby.
Still hard to say who's going to win this.
Early enough. That first set was pretty close.
Yeah.
1 point game going into the final end, so here we go with just a 1 point to start the second set. For those of you at home who are viewing, feel free to let us know who you are, where you're from. I'm always curious to see just how many people are watching and whereabouts they're tuning in from. I do love how every championship I go to, and this one's no exception, the spectators start to creep up and up and up as the week goes on. So on day 1, day 2, day 3, it's usually pretty quiet, but then as day 4, day 5, day 6, you start to see more and more and more, and even today there's a lot more people here now than there was on Monday. Seats are taken. I suspect tomorrow might be a full house. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that the finals tomorrow will be around 1:30 p.m. local time is my guess. But it really does depend how long those 2 morning games take.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people come out for the finals.
Mm-hmm. I do love what they do for the finals too, and assuming they'll do this again this year, is that they use rink 4.5 and rink 5.5, so that way it's a completely new rink for everybody. Just crashing on a short bowl. That might have been okay had it got around, but it's so short now that on our camera screen you can hardly see it. Jerome's asking who shot. Since it wasn't a clear, quick answer, then it must be a measure for shot. Marker is favoring Jerome's back bowl. So it looks like on the left, rink 4, our left, your right, Haren Bartu is about to win the first set. He's up 8-3 as they're playing the final end, so that game's out of reach. That set is out of reach, rather, for Pat Bird. And I believe Kerry Lucier beat Carter Watson in the first set. Not sure what the final score was, but I can see the 1 next to his name. Curious if Jerome thinks that he has shot and was just going around playing a position bowl, or if he was just trying to draw and came up a bit heavy. Not sure. Probably a good weight for Jim, but coming up so narrow, it didn't change the count at all. 1 bowl each to come for both these players, as Jerome is quick on the mat to get going. This looks to be a better weighted bowl. Will it stop in time? Yes, it will. That is clearly the undisputed shot. You can't see it on your screen, but that looks to be fairly close to a backresting toucher. There's probably an inch between his last bowl and the jack.
Depends on your weight.
Yeah, he's in the ballpark. I think he's got it.
Oh, nice ball.
Trailed the jack and good for 1. Coming up clutch on his last one. That's something that's hard to practice, even when you want to practice. Say, I want to be more effective on my 4th and final bowl when I'm under pressure. It's hard to go out on a green and say, hey, let's practice being under pressure. One of the ways to maybe help with that is mental training. So something that is now going to be a requirement for our competition coaches is the addition of a course called Basic Mental Skills, where we talk about things like goal setting and how to change your focus and manage distractions and stuff like that. So it's a nice addition. It's a requirement in almost every other sport. So it's a multi-sport course. So when you take it, you might be paired up with people from soccer or basketball or various other sports, but I think it's going to pay a lot of dividends for coaches who are coaching competitive bowlers to be able to not only make game plans and set goals with them, but to also work on strategies to refocus and attentional control, stuff like that. Very useful. I've heard arguments from people about whether bowls is 90% mental or 95% mental. I'm not sure which one I want to go with, but there is a lot of strategy and games in your head to play with.
More so in singles, I think. When you're on your own and you have to make every shot count.
Sometimes you're your own worst enemy. Can't get out of your own head.
Yeah, I've been doing some reading and about sports psychology and whatnot. one of the old courses, the previous levels
Mhm.
that they had.
Mhm.
When I took that part of the course was, well, we went to it, and then this guy came in who was a sports psychologist,
Mhm.
and he was the sports psychologist for the Randy Ferbey team
Okay.
from BC.
Mhm.
And he was, later on that day, he was going to go and join them. So he gave this whole lecture on sports psychology and whatnot, and that had nothing to do with the course that we were supposed to be answering questions on. But it was very good.
Back in my younger years when I was on the national team, we had a training camp where we brought in a sports psychologist, and I can't remember his name now, but after finishing school, he worked with us for a bit and then went to work with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and so he was actually part of the team that won the Cup a few years ago, so it was really cool to see him out on the ice with the team. But one of the things he talked to us about was, what is your thought process, I guess, what's going through your head when you lose a shot, lose a game, someone gets lucky? Are you able to rub it off, or are you saying, oh, woe is me, and why does this always happen to me? And are you getting all negative, so the positive and negative thoughts going through your head? And so we spent a few hours talking about just some of the things that subconsciously come through your brain that you don't really have much control over, but how you can manage it and how much of an impact it's going to have on your game. And I found it to be completely fascinating, just because we've all been in those games where someone gets a wick 20 feet wide, comes in through the head, and you end up losing the game, and it's just so frustrating. But
Yeah.
how do you deal with that? How do you cope?
That's right. Very interesting. And the other thing is, how do you teach people to do it?
Teach people to get those wicks that are 20 feet wide and come into the head and win the game?
No. How do you teach people to forget about it
Yes.
and get on with the game?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the competitive course as it is at the moment, there's a little bit of that at the end. But I found it hard to really get a handle on it so I could teach it to them.
Right. Part of the updates that I'm making to the competition coach material, the course, is actually to remove that, so that way you learn it in basic mental skills, where other facilitators can spend a full 4 hours on it, where it gets the attention it needs, really, because it's a big topic and there's a lot to learn about it.
Yeah. One of the fascinating things that this guy that was the sports psychologist talked about was visualization.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about a couple of people that did downhill skiing,
Mm-hmm.
and they could sit down in a chair and imagine that course all the way down there and be within a couple of seconds of their actual time coming down the course.
My old basketball coach in high school tried to get us to work on visualization, and I remember playing at my first junior championships. Brian McCartney, I think, was the national team coach at the time, and he tried to get us to work on visualization. And at a young age, it's really hard to convince a 15-year-old to visualize anything. So I found it to be a little bit loopy. But now that I'm a little bit older, I thought, you know what, that's actually probably a really good thing to be practicing and working on, is visualization.
Well, one of the things, Stephen Forrest out here, he was one of our coaches,
Mhm.
and he has a whole program of his own. But one of the things he used to say was, if you can see the shot, you can make it.
Part of the mental skills course, when we're talking about focus and attention, breaks it down into dimensions of internal and external. And narrow and broad, and so there's a lot of things you can focus on internally, like your breathing rate or your body movements as you're going through the delivery. But then there's also those external things you can focus on too, whether you're aiming point or something like the wind. If you're playing on a fast green, you might need to focus on what the wind speed's like. And then there's also narrow and broad of a specific narrow point, one small particular thing you're focusing on, or is it the whole green, something a little bit bigger, the score of the game as an example. And so it's interesting to break it down into the different dimensions of what you can focus on or not focus on, and try to refocus if you've found your attention wandering. And it's fascinating to me that this sport has such long games, because when we introduce someone new to the game, we're asking them to focus for 2.5 hours at a time. And outside of bowls, when was the last time you focused on anything for 2.5 hours straight? Great effort there from Jerome. You can see he just rolled up to touch Jim's bowl, but not quite good enough for shot. That's a really good second shot, though.
Usually in a game, you can, after the game's over, you can pick out the point where if you won, why you won, because you made this good shot at this particular time, or vice versa. If you lost, this is, at that time you should have done this and you didn't.
Something that a really good coach would work with you on would be the debrief. So after every game, you should have a chat with your coach, and that's where you would pick apart those points of either why I won or why I lost and what you can do better. So immediately after the game, if you can have a chat with your coach and talk about those things and maybe catalog it, write it down, so that way the next time at practice you can work on it and improve it and have a chat again next game, see if the same thing happens or not.
You know, I was just thinking when we're in here playing in the league I play in, there on every rink there's lots of bowls that collide and that go flying off. I haven't seen one bowl collide like that in this thing.
I did notice that the other day. I was talking to Rob about how the players are standing off on the mat waiting for each other to play because the bowls are so wide, or the green speed's so fast, I guess, that yeah, you're leaving your rink for your aiming point. So bowls collisions, I can imagine, for league play and jitneys and everything else, would probably happen fairly frequently here.
Well, a lot of times you have to pause and wait for the other rink to roll their bowl because you're both rolling towards each other.
Common practice for any alley bowlers is normally when you're on a lane, you wait for the other person to bowl first. Jerome is stalking this down, just getting a rub on the front, but not quite enough. So probably still down 2 is what that looks like from the camera angle. So looking at the chat here, I can see that Daryl's saying there's a lot of bowlers who likely can't tell you what they're really looking at, how far down the green, and their thought process before delivery. And Bill is saying it feels like short bursts of focus, sort of like golf, and can't imagine total continuous focus for 2 hours. I would maybe question you on that, Bill, because when you're done bowling, yeah, you're not necessarily focusing on your delivery, but is your mind immediately going off into the woods about something else, or are you watching the other player bowl and still scoping out the head? So different type of focus maybe, but I don't think that many people after they roll their bowl start thinking about chocolate cake or something else that's not the game specific. Ebbs and flows of the amount of focus maybe. What a bowl from Jim Duholke, my goodness. So Jerome Kirby has 1 bowl left. I almost expect him to fire at this, to be honest, because this is a pretty tight head. Take a look at that on the camera screen.
Yeah.
You can see how close that is. That's going to be tough to outdraw. You definitely could play into that, come off of Jim's last bowl and flop into the jack, but I think he's down 3.
It looks like it.
I don't think you're going to be any worse off if you throw a drive at that than you are right now. And so here we go. How close is his driving? That looks very wide.
Yeah.
Missed it all. So assuming that that's 3 for Mr. Duholke, that would make it 5-1, which feels kind of familiar to what we saw in the first set. It was also 5-1 after 4 before Jerome went and popped a perfect end. I really like that analogy, Bill. So kind of like a question of intensity of focus. So like an elastic band, always under tension, but sometimes a very high degree of tension. I think that's a really good way to describe what the focus is like in a Bulls game. Sometimes it's stretched and a lot of tension there. Sometimes it's less so, but there's still always some sort of tension there. For a good bowler, I guess I should say. I can understand in a jitney you're probably off chatting and not focusing on the game whatsoever, but in a game like this, I don't see a whole lot of socializing going on between the players. Five-1 after 4. Approaching the halfway mark of the second set. While Jerome liked to play short ends by having the mat way up and then rolling medium length jacks, it looks like Jim is trying to stretch it out here. The mat's probably not quite on the tee. It's up a little bit, but the jack is on the tee, or a centimeter in front of it.
Oh, very nice. Ooh.
I noticed when I was watching earlier this morning and yesterday that some of the less experienced players here who don't play on this very often really struggle when the jack's on the tee to keep your bowl on the rink. It is very easy to lose your bowl into the ditch if you don't have perfect weight control here. It doesn't take that much more effort to play to the tee and to put it in the ditch.
Yeah, the other thing is if you watch that Potters competition and they have that portable rink, they have 3 meters behind the tee rather than 2.
Yeah, that's interesting as well too. I love that the PBA has blue carpet just because it's different, so I like the color. It's fascinating to me that it's portable, that they can move it around to different locations, but it takes a good day to set up, I think, and the crew that has to do it knows how to do it well. And it's just one rink.
I think it was last year when they first started it, they had this stop motion picture of them setting it up.
Oh, yes. Yep. So you can actually watch the setup procedure for putting the rink together. It was at the PBA event that the shot that rocked the world that made it to the highlight of the day, play of the day, whatever, on SportsCenter, Sportsnet, pick your sports channel.
Yeah, that was some shot.
Sure was. Sure was. Not surprisingly, stretching it out here and playing almost a full length is a much looser head. It is hard to play tee to tee. And we're seeing the players here struggling to get super close. Other than Jim's lone shot there, lots of space to navigate.
See, you got that extra thing that you have to think about, which is don't go in the ditch.
That might be something to work on, the mental thought process instead of the negative, don't go in the ditch, the positive of don't be short, or
Yeah.
trying to think of how I could phrase that to be positive. Make sure you're there.
That could be negative,
That
too.
could be negative too, yeah. I'm not quite sure how to phrase that in a positive manner.
Draw the jack.
Yeah, there we go. Do what you've been doing, just add a touch more. Well, will it stop in time?
Oh, wow.
Will it stop in time? Yes, it will.
Ooh,
Great bowl.
good bowl.
Coming up clutch, fourth final bowl. So the youngest guy here, Eric Gallipo from Ontario, his dad is here with him, and he keeps track of stats for him after every game, or every game really, every bowl. And I don't quite know what stats they're keeping track of, but I would be curious to see how effective fourth bowl is for people, because I think that would be a fascinating stat to know, that you're making 75% of your last bowls when you need to, or you're only making 10%, so you're really choking when it comes down to your fourth bowl. You know, that's something I would love to know as a personal player, just so that's something you can work on later.
I've seen Davey do that.
Mm-hmm.
Score every bowl, or not score, but whether it was long or short, or
Mm-hmm.
or was the conversion made, or and then afterwards they got every end and they can talk about it.
Mm-hmm. The first time I went to Hong Kong and China, our skip was keeping track of our stats for us, of were we within a mat length of our desired target. And I found that super useful post-event to go back and look and see that, all right, game one, I was making 72% of my lead bowls, but game two, when I played second, I was only making 38%, so a really drastic drop-off. And I just found that to be really useful to go back and look at afterwards to see, to quantify, I guess, how good I was playing. Because you know when you play a good game, it just feels good and you know you played well, but it's, for me as a numbers guy, I love to be able to see the numbers and actually justify how good I was playing. Or not. Quick water break here from Jerome, and we are now back ready to roll 5-2. After 5, so starting number 6. Not quite the same result that we saw in the first set. In the first set when Jim was up 5-1. Let me change the camera here so you can see the screen here. There we go. West Van showing up with a homemade sign. Love it. West Van supporting Jim and Tim. Reminds me of those fans that go to sports games that say, I just want to be on TSN, or I just want to be on TV, with the cardboard cutout. Not a terrible opening bowl, probably 2 to 3 feet short. I am not quite sure what the discussion is here between Jim and the marker, trying to figure out length of jack or length of bowl. Lots of questions, lots of conversation though. Rink on my right, Kerry Lucier won the first set and is up 6-0 after 3 in the second set. Rink on the left, Pat Bird is up 2-1 after 3 over Huren, but Huren won the first set. Well, all those questions clearly paid off, as Jim's first bowl is just about jack high. Touch through, maybe. Now that we are over halfway through the second set, any bold predictions on whether we'll be going to a tiebreaker or not?
Could very well be.
4 ends left, 3-point game.
If I was that good at predicting winners, I would be buying lottery tickets.
There's a great bowl from Mr. Jim. I find sets play to be really fascinating with the whole plus-minus aspect, because I'm looking at the standings right now, and Kerry Lucier is 7-2 in third place, technically tied for second place, and he's -8. 7 wins, 2 losses, -8 on the plus-minus. That is bamboozling.
So how far down the line does that come into play if it's a tie?
It is way far down the line, so they look at wins first, obviously, and then it goes to, let's see here, set wins and then set points. And I think it's not until after that before we start looking at plus-minus, so that's like the 4th or 5th option down the line for tiebreakers, so it's not very likely that that's going to have any impact whatsoever. But it is just interesting to look at, because Jim Duholke immediately after him, 6-3, is +69. Worst record, 77 more points. Shots for, I guess. I'm guessing it's 2 black bowls there for Jim, is what that looks like?
Looks like it.
Yeah, Daryl, I think you just described Kerry's whole week. You can get hammered in one set, win a close one, and then win the tie, and your plus-minus will be strange looking. I think that's a bit too quick to be in the count, but hard to tell from this distance. Maybe it was quite a few. I saw Jerome holding up several fingers. Was it a 4-ball?
It might have been.
Rolling the dice? Yeah, it was. So Mr. Duholke has learned, instead of giving up 4 when you have the 5-1 lead, you should take the 4 when you have that kind of lead. So now, with 3 ends to go, 7-point game, Jim is clearly in the driver's seat for the rest of the set. He can afford to give up 2 every end the rest of the game and still win the set. That's got to be a comfortable feeling. Rolling a long one here. But the mat is well up, so this is actually probably somewhere between short and medium length. Opening bowl here from Jim is about a meter short, as that's landing almost perfectly on the dot right in front of the tee. So that'll give you some depth perception on difference from jack to bowl. Do you find the lights in here play tricks with you? I've heard a lot of people talk about the glare and how being under the lights for hours on end eventually starts to mess with their head.
That's why I always wear a baseball cap in here. Keep the glare down from the lights. Yeah, and it does affect a lot of people.
When I was talking to Dougie Prop yesterday, he said he played against people who often wear sunglasses in here, light tinted sunglasses, which I thought was just really interesting to be indoors and wearing sunglasses, but the lights are bright. That is probably shot.
Yeah.
Smattering of applause over on rink 3 as John McDonald just made a heck of a shot, is what it sounds like. Jerome is looking to find a friend. Doesn't even need it. Just draw right inside it. Good for Uno.
Mm-hmm.
Tough spot to be in here for Jerome. If you're trying to tie the set, it means you need to score a 3, a 2, and a 2. Currently holding 1, so he could add his 2 other bullets. Tracking nicely. Will he get it? Nope. Just on the high side. That is quite the wall to rest against now. Same bull from Jerome makes it easy. Rule number 1, whenever there's a wall, use it. Make your life easy. Jerome is not going to take that advice, though. Don't think that's bringing that into the count. Well, I was not a betting man before, but it looks like this game is shaping up like it could be going to a tiebreak. And if that's the case, Jim said all of his losses have been in tiebreaks, and every time he's been in the tiebreak, he lost, so.
Well, he needs to think positive.
Yeah,
Think
exactly.
the opposite.
Time to break that trend. No better time than the present to get a win. And that is coming up short, right in the drive line possibly. Not that Jerome would ever be doing that. I think all he's really got here is a draw. I don't see much more for options. I suppose he could switch hands and try to promote his bowl, but switching hands on your last bowl is rarely recommended. Daryl Fitzgerald, what a question. And Jerome is blasting through this. So push his own out, sit there for 1 still.
I might have to.
Possibly. We'll do the finger dance just to check. So Daryl's asking, what do you think are the pros and cons of sets play versus a race to 21 or more points? Yikes for a question there, Daryl. I think that, and it was 2 there as Jim quickly kicked them out.
My preference is set play for singles.
Is it really?
I don't know. I feel more comfortable in that.
Not 2 red, so 9-4. I'm kind of the opinion that the weaker player can win sets and the stronger player will win points. And my rationale for that is exactly what we were talking about earlier with Carey having funky looking plus minus. I've seen many games where someone will overall might have won 26-10, but because it's sets, they end up losing. Just the timing. I do think, though, that the points game favors the slow starter, whereas sets maybe less so.
It's a longer game and more time to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen games where somebody is sitting on 20
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is down at 12, and the one with 12 won the game.
Right. But Bill, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Sets play is better for spectators. It is frustrating from my point of view as a commentator to be watching games where one player is clearly better than the other and you're looking at the scoreboard and it's 27-2. And I'm thinking not just singles play now, but also team play. When we're looking at pairs or fours or whatever discipline you want. After 10 ends, you can tell somebody's already up 30-0, and I would love to see a set play used instead just to reset and make it a little more entertaining for the fans. That said, I do think sets play, since you do need to get off to a quick start if you want to win that first set, that is a different skill set. Not everyone is really good at starting a game off quickly, properly, and that's something I'd also love to see if players track this when they're practicing and during games. How many of them win the first end? How many of them are actually quick starters? There we go, using the wall. One black bull for sure. So 2 ends left. Mr. Kirby's looking for 5 because he can just tie that set and still get the win. So he needs a 2 and a 3. With only 2 bullets left, this is getting dicey now. If he's going to have any hope of tying or winning this set, and he's throwing weight. Well, not sure that really helped his cause any. Because Jim's bowl is basically resting against Jerome's, I don't see a whole lot of danger of his bowl leaving. Probably just draw another one, I would guess. I'm not sure if there's really any danger or harm or anything you need to prepare for. Could go for best back, I guess, as an option if Jerome's going to fire at the jack and try to put the jack in the ditch. That might have been what Jim was going for, trying to get best back. Might have done it. So with his last bowl here, he needs at least a couple to give himself a chance here. He's down 5. I guess he could score 1 and be down 4 going home. Ideally, Mr. Kirby's looking for 2, but I don't see how you're going to get that. A really perfect trail, maybe? I don't think Jack in the Ditch is really going to help you too much based off of where Jim's last bowl is. Real perfect trail might do it.
Yeah.
But of course, Jim has last bowl to come still yet, so even whatever you do make, Jim has a chance to spoil it. I think he is going for like trail in the ditch type of weight. He's inside though. Trail in the ditch didn't work, so Jim's holding 1, so he doesn't even need to throw this. He can just eat it and he'll win the set. Jim is 6-3 with 15 set wins and 15 set points. So that does put him in really good standing if he ever is in a tie with anybody else, though, because that's actually the most set wins and the most set points of everybody, even the people ahead of him. Not afraid of it. Still going for the draw. I think it's just one to make it 10-4. After 8. But since that does mean he will win the set, I'm going to add a -1 to his name too, just to show that it'll be 1 set apiece. So will this be the game where Jim bucks the trend of losing the tiebreaks? He lost to Doug Prop in the tiebreak. It was 2-3. He lost to Kerry Lucier in the tiebreak. It was 2-3. And he lost to Eric Gallipo in the tiebreak, 6-0. So a couple of close tiebreaks and one not so close tiebreak.
Why did they decide to go to the most points scored in the 3 ends instead of
Best 2
just
out of 3?
Yeah.
2 out of 3 ends? That's a great question. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I'm pretty sure in the PBA they do that. It's just whoever wins the most ends. Like if you have to win 2 ends out of 3 ends, right?
Oh, look at that.
Not sure if you were able to see on the right side of your screen there, Carter Watson was trying to triple out Kerry. So I'm looking at Jerome Kirby's record here. Of the 9 games he's played so far, 5 of them have gone to the tiebreakers. He beat Tim 5-0 in a tiebreaker. He beat Kerry 6-0 in a tiebreaker. He beat Pierre Vanderhoot 8-1 in a tiebreak, Pat Bird 4-1, and Doug Prop 3-0. So he's absolutely dominated those tiebreakers to be undefeated 9-0. Less a tiebreak and more of a heartbreak. Good comment, Susan. You've got lots of witty phrases so far this week. I love it. Jim holding a couple. This end is relatively useless in the sense that we already know who's winning this set, so this is basically just for plus minus at this point. And a little bit of warm-up before we head into the tiebreaker set of 3 ends. Susan, you can be hired for a small fee and a set of bowls. Yikes. That might be a little too steep for my price range right now.
This is looking like it's good.
This looks really good. Right on it.
Very nice.
So the jack isn't quite on the tee, and from my point of view, it almost looks like it's actually off center. Kind of looks like the marker didn't put that right back on the center line. It's off by a little bit. I am also on an angle. I'm not directly behind the jack either. Throw and wait on his last bowl. Interesting choice. Interesting result. Let's watch that again. Bing, bang, boom. Well, it's a good thing that he's getting those kind of results when it doesn't really matter right now. That's something I learned when playing abroad, is that the expectation in many countries is that when you get a lucky wick, you are expected to apologize. And if you don't apologize, you're seen as rude and sort of unsportsmanlike. Whereas over here in Canada, depending on which province you're in, that might not necessarily be the case. Sometimes you just sort of put your head down or wave or walk away and don't necessarily have to say sorry.
Depends on who you're playing against and, how well you know them.
That's true too. That's very true.
I know there's some people that you can kibitz with out there, and there's some people that you can't.
I'm a big fan of the quicker formats, changing formats where you have fewer bowls, like 3-bowl pairs or 2-bowl triples, because I find that it takes some of the luck out of it. When you're playing 3-bowl triples, there's just so much clutter in front. You can just huck weight and you're bound to hit something and bound to get lucky. But when there's fewer bowls on the green, there's less chance for luck, less chance for wicks.
Yeah, I like 2-bowl triples.
I would be okay with just a 1-bowl format, because then there's no luck involved at all. It is just pure skill. How good are you with your 1 bowl? I know most people would say that's too quick and that's not much of a game, and a lot of people wouldn't like it, but I think I'm a big fan of taking luck completely out of it.
It's frustrating when you make the shot, but you don't get the result.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know who won the coin toss here to see who got the mat and who got the hammer. I'm going to assume that Jerome won the coin toss and elected to take the mat based off of his first bowl especially. But are you the type of guy that's going to take the jack, or are you the type of guy that wants the hammer?
I'll usually take the jack.
Yeah? I do too. I would much rather dictate the length. And I also want to be able to lock my first one on and put pressure on you right away. I get to dictate how this end is going to shape. Looking around at other scores, it looks to me like Tim Mason has straight setted John McDonald, as they've been off for a while now. Pierre Vanderhoot and Doug Prop are, Doug's up 5-4 over Pierre after 6. Eric Gallipo up 6-5 over Alan Wass after 6. Pat Bird's up 4-3 over Heren Bartu. After logging one on the way that Jerome's first bowl was, how scared are you to then play into the head and disrupt things and be anywhere near it with your second bowl and anything afterwards? As you can see, Jerome's second bowl was well wide and sort of nowhere near it. Mentally, I find that to be a challenge sometimes. When you lock your first one on, you don't want to mess with it, put anything near it. Don't think he's afraid of it, as this is coming in fairly quickly. Trailing the jack back, bearing it behind. What a shot.
Yeah.
Kerry Lucier is about to straight set Carter Watson. He's up 16-3, playing the last end of the second set, and he did win the first set. So that means Kerry will improve to 8-2, and Tim is also 8-2. So the two of them are really duking it out for second place behind Jerome.
Ooh.
The backboards here are thunderous. All right, now that Jim is back to the mat as he went down to take a look, we are into his third bowl coming up here after Jerome made a really nice trail to trail it behind those couple other bowls. Going to be tough here for Jim to draw that off.
Oh.
Yowza. Great effort. And yeah, all the thundering is actually just people missing runners or connecting on runners and bulls hitting the ditch board. Apologies if you are able to hear that high-pitched humming. The fire alarm went off this morning, and it seems like they're testing the system all morning. They were unaware an event was happening here down below the gymnastics studio upstairs, so it's that time of year to replace the batteries on your smoke detectors, folks, and so that's what they're doing here, is flushing out the system. That is quite the resting bowl to come up to, and yeah, Jerome is going to be playing on his forehand, so I think he'll be drawing around everything, trying to just rest Jim's last bowl there. Roll it over once, come inside it. Just a touch on the high side for that kind of weight, as he's gone around and now has best back. Really tough shot here for Jim with his last bowl to come still to really just draw that off. I'm not sure a drive is going to get you anything. Don't see much other options besides just a draw. So the winners tomorrow, after the gold medal games have been played, men's and women's winners will be off to represent Canada at the World Indoor World Cup. Usually it's sometime in March, I believe. They'll play a slightly different format than we do here. I believe it's 7 end sets and a 1 end tiebreak in singles, and then they also team up and play mixed pairs as well, which I believe is also sets. So Jim is still trying to draw it off, and he's close. Awfully close. Just diving at the last minute and coming through the hole. So that'll be 1 to Mr. Jerome Kirby after the first end of the tiebreak. You can see where the mat is being placed there, and we will flip down to the other camera angle.
In that World Bowls competition, and when they get into the tie break, they're allowed to nominate one end where they can kill the end.
Oh, really? Can they?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And then they can only do it once, though.
Right.
And whether they make it or not, but if they kill the end, then it starts again.
Interesting. Interesting. Get to nominate one time.
Yeah. So they have to say before they make the shot that
Right.
this is
what they're doing.
what they're doing, and then
I'm not sure how I feel about that. I remember when Respot first started becoming popular. Initially, I hated it, but now I actually really love it. and I feel like it adds a more strategic element to it, and it forces you to play a little bit more careful and be a little bit more tactful with how you're playing. And so the ability to kill an end and just restart, I actually don't like it now because it just favors someone who got out bowled to have the chance to reset it.
They're only allowed to do that in the tie break.
Only in the tie break and only
in the
one time.
Only one time.
Well, if you have to have it as an option, I guess that's probably the best time for it. But yes, Daryl, I have gone over to the dark side.
Oh, nice ball.
Look at this bowl from the Joker. Coming alive here in the tiebreak. JK. Bill's asking where is it that they have the 3 different respots. I'm pretty sure that is PBA, which PBA is something they do play at Potters. So, I mean, both of your answers are kind of the one and the same there, Bill.
As far as I know, the people that are putting on the competition have the option to do 1 single spot or 3.
Or 3? Well, that's actually kind of interesting that I don't think a lot of people fully understood prior to the past few years, is that when you're running your own local club tournament, you can set your own conditions of play to be whatever you want them to be. So if you want to run a club tournament where you have 3 respots, by all means, go for it. And here we go with some weight. Jerome's putting on a clinic on the draw front, so Jim's looking to blast it up, and bingo. Look at that. Let's watch that again. Here we go. Tracking nicely. 1 and 2. Not bad, not bad. Look at that. Marker's even polishing up the bowls as he puts them on. Look at that.
He's looking for a tip.
James, I agree with you. I don't think enough clubs take advantage of the ability to set their own conditions of play either. I think that specifically in Ontario, being Ontario native myself, too many clubs like to just copy-paste the same formats, same procedures, and do the same thing over and over again. I would love to see more creativity, more differences. Throw in a 5-end game. Throw in 3-spot respot. Throw in some 1-bowl singles. Just do something different to shake it up. Jerome is chasing this down.
Going to talk to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is definitely the shot.
Looks like it listened.
Mm-hmm. Did finish just enough to make that a little more difficult to drive at, too. So after quite the drive from Jim, I think his best option right now would be the draw. I'm not sure if driving that bowl out is really the percentage shot to play here. So how good is your drive and draw? Let's find out.
Ooh, come on.
Didn't send it. So that'll be at least another one to Jerome. Is he able to squeak 2 out of that? He
Close.
says 2. He says 2, and I think it was 2. Assuming that was 2-3 zip lead going into the final end of the tiebreak. In the driver's seat. Immediately grabs the bowl and starts walking up the green. Look how far up he's going here. As I flip back the camera, as you can see, we're going right up to the hog line just about. And I don't think we've seen any ends where the mat's been right up at the hog line like this. They've had it up a bit, but not quite that far. How good is his jack rolling? Will it stop? Yes, it will. Here we go.
Game on.
Jack in the ditch to put this game to bed? Nope. Susan, you're funny. Her old Henselite classics had little dogs on them, and she would yell, sit, sit, sit at them, but much like a dog, they rarely listened. Funny gal.
Well, Vince is the Henselite rep, and he's always after me to buy a new set of bowls. And I said, well, when you get a set that listens to you, I'm there.
We'll pay a premium for it. That is quite the opening bowl from Jerome. Up 3-0, final end. Puts one within a foot and a half. Well, at least it made it 2 jack high, so maybe give him an option later. Jim needs 3 to tie and force an extra end of the tiebreak set. Jerome's bowl is off camera, but it is on the green. So probably 3 feet behind Jim's last bowl. Straight back is where Jerome's bowl finished, off screen in the bottom left there. And Jim is still, looks like he's on the high side, not quite getting the finish. So now that's interesting. Is that intentional? Is he building a pocket that he's going to chip the jack to later? Jerome. Look at that. Doubles out both of Jim's bowls. That's game. Smart move. Smart move. Doubles out both bowls, so Jim doesn't have enough bullets left to even tie if he wanted to. That is impressive. So that'll be game then. So yeah. Mr. Kirby still stays undefeated after that game. So Jerome improves to 10-0, double digits.
Wow.
10-0. Jim drops to 6-4, which I think puts him out of the running for a gold medal match, as Tim and Carey are both 8-2 now, I believe. So Jerome has punched his ticket through to the gold medal game, regardless of who his opponent is. He'll be playing for gold. We'll be streaming him on Saturday against either Tim Mason or Kerry Lucier. Remains to be seen. That's it. That's all. Thanks for commentating with me, John. I appreciate this.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
We'll take a short break, short hiatus, and I'll be back later for the women's game in probably 20 minutes or so.